Hi, I'm Benton Stokes.
And I'm Elane O'Rourke.
And this is Cocktail Theology.
Hi there.
Hi there.
You're in charge tonight.
Oh, am I?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
You're often in charge. I just don't always tell you that.
You just don't clue me in. That's probably better. I'd just stress out about it.
See, that's the thing about our relationship is that people don't realize how much in charge you are.
Myself included?
Yourself included.
Right.
See, that just tells you how completely smooth I am at this.
It's so smooth. So smooth. Wow.
So we're at your place today.
We are at my place
Which I
today,
love.
and we are having margaritas today.
We are having margaritas. So, you guys, if you are ever in the area of Benton's place, you really must have him make a margarita.
Well, simple is better, you know. I found a really cute book online from a gentleman named Robert Simonson, who is a writer for the New York Times. It's called 3-Ingredient Cocktails. And I'm all about the 3-ingredient cocktail. But a lot of classic cocktails that only have 3 ingredients. He has little essays in there too. So if you are a home cocktail maker, drinker, it's a little book worth checking out. So yeah, we are so busy. So many things going on.
It feels like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're always busy, but yeah, seems like there's a lot going on. I'm taking my kids to ride roller coasters this weekend. You have a trip to California planned.
I do.
Lots of us spreading out and going places and moving around. But speaking of going places and moving around, we would love to come to you. We have some things that we're teaching this summer at the Earhart House.
I'm so excited.
That we're really excited about, and these are the classes, courses that we could certainly bring to you in a variety of different formats.
Absolutely.
Depending on how much time you have and how you want to do it. We're getting ready to start Bible 101, reading the Bible as if it mattered, which is really, really enlightening for all of us, but it really speaks to people who either grew up reading the Bible as a self-help book or as a manual,
Book of rules.
a book of rules, or people who discount the divinity of the Bible. So it kind of comes from either end of those spectrums.
That's right. I really enjoy doing that. And we'll be recording it and probably putting just recordings up on the website. But yeah, we would love to do that elsewhere as well. So, and we are, vaguely entertaining. He's entertaining. See, here's the thing. I realized the other day that I am the straight man in our couplehood here. And I never expected to be the straight man, and yet I am the straight man. I am the straight man.
I don't know.
And you are the musical artist and creative person in that sense of it. So he brings things like music and art and that kind of stuff. And I show up and I share way too much schooling.
But you're so smart.
Thank you.
And so
I'm
insightful.
So smart. Yeah. Anyway, so that's us. But we would love to come to you. If you think you'd like us to come to you wherever you are, but you don't know what you'd like us to do, just shoot us an email, please. info@schoolforseekers.com, and let's talk about it.
Seriously, it can look like anything.
That's right. We do everything we do because we want to shape and help lives.
That's right.
And yours are the lives we care about.
That's
so
right.
Please let us know if there's anything we can do, and we will definitely take it under consideration and see what we can do about it.
For sure.
Speaking of creativity, you've got something coming up.
Yeah, I do. I'm doing some recording on Friday, a new old song. It's a song that I unearthed a while ago that I had written. I don't know, I went back and I found the lyrics sheet, and I started it in 2010.
Okay.
And more or less finished it because I performed it at a thing, and then I put it away, and I never did it again. Also, I got to do some recording with my kids this weekend, which was fun.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
How did I not know this?
I don't
All right,
know.
so what did you do?
Well, Zach, my oldest, texted me on Friday, and he's a recording industry management major at Middle Tennessee State University, and he said, Dad, I'm getting a little rusty on my Pro Tools. I feel like I need to practice. Is there anything that you'd like to record? And I said, sure, we'll find something. And he goes, okay, well, I'll bring my stuff. And so he came over, and I said, I hope you brought your guitar because there's not an instrument in my place that's in tune. So he brought his guitar. We did an acoustic guitar version of Blue from my Grace and Gravity record.
Oh, yay.
And so he played
yay.
He played the guitar. It was more or less a single take thing.
Right.
But he played it, I sang it, and then Allie did a little background vocal on it. So the three of us did a little recording, which was fun.
I bet.
Super fun.
You're so Von Trappy.
We're very Von Trappy. It's true. So that.
That's what's going on for us. And honestly, I would love to know what's going on for the people who listen to this.
I would too.
I want to know who you are.
I do too. I really, really do. Because we do these podcasts and we know you're out there, but you're just like people with black bars over their faces, like over their eyes. It's like we don't know who you are. It's like you're part of the witness protection program or something. Or you're like just in the mystic fog. Like you're hobbits in a fog.
Hobbits in a fog?
Yeah. Like you can't see them. You can't make them out. They're way over there.
Okay, sweetie, I never go to hobbits.
I don't know. I don't either.
I mean, unless it's hairy feet, unless they're hairy feet, I don't go to hobbits.
I don't know why. I just went to hobbits.
But it would be wonderful. So on cocktailtheology.com, there are places to comment on the various podcasts. And we would love to know who's listening and what you're interested in, what you want to hear about, and what your summers are going like. It's wonderful to get to know people, which actually that was my magic segue into the topic.
Getting to know people?
Well, yes, getting to know you.
Anyway. Getting to know. Oh.
Yes, but come on. What's the topic? You came up with the topic.
Community.
That's why you're in charge.
Community is what we're talking about today. In recent years, I have found myself saying community a lot and folding it into my faith life, like it's a part of my faith experience. And I'm not sure why, other than I appreciate connectedness and connection. I didn't grow up with a sense of, like, we went to a church where we weren't terribly connected to the other families. I mean, I was connected to other kids in the youth group, but, like, I never remember having church folks over for dinner or going to someone else's house. I never remember having the pastor over. I never remember that kind of connection with my church growing up. And I don't really have that kind of connection with my church now. But I do have that kind of connection with a small group of folks that come every week and worship with us, and we eat together, and we laugh together, and we swim together, and we drink together, and we do all that stuff together. And I find a tremendous amount of value in that.
I confess that I have no idea what community means. None. And here's why.
Okay.
It used to be, if you said community, you meant neighborhood. You meant
your
that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So then at some point, not terribly long ago in the history of humankind, the word community started being used for anybody who has an interest in something. And the one that got me first, that really just made me grit my teeth, and that probably my dentist made all kinds of money off of, was the intelligence community.
What? The intelligence? Like spies?
Like CIA, FBI, and those guys. They still say that, though, the intelligence community, right? As if, now, see, here's the part that gets me. If any group of people is not a community, it should be spies, right? I mean, watch any spy movie where, like, they don't know that the other one's a spy until later on they miss.
Yeah, I don't see spies hanging out and having tea or...
intelligence community made me crazy. Like, even college community, I can say, okay, so it's the people who are connected to the college, right? Yeah. Intelligence community?
No, that's not a community. Like, they exchange recipes and recommendations on, I don't know. Cloaks.
Daggers.
Sports cars, maybe, or
martinis.
Yes, martinis.
But that's when I started to figure out that for me, community had no meaning. Because if you could say intelligence community, or you could say, for that matter, liberal community, conservative community, gay community, black community, whatever, as if any particular small group, and I mean small in terms of anywhere from 5 to 5,000, that determined the group.
The group think.
The group think. You know, it's like, I always feel for people, it never happens with a majority group, whatever the majority group, it's always the minority group. So as a gay person, speaking for all gay people, all black people, all whatever the thing is, how do you feel about whatever, as if one person could speak for the entirety of any quote-unquote community.
Right.
So I admit that I have no idea what community means. And I think part of the challenge in churches is that since Saddleback, the language of fellowship became its own particular methodology in the church, And then fellowship has sort of fallen out of favor. Yeah. Now people use community as if that's any clearer than fellowship. I have always experienced myself as an outsider to every group ever.
Wow.
Ever. Mm-hmm. And I understand why historically. Mm-hmm. Like, even if I'm leading the group, it's sort of like I'm kind of...
You're sort of hovering over the group?
Hovering over the group. But as a result, that sense of always being on the periphery or always being an outsider gives me a very different sense of what community is.
Yeah.
So when I think about my community, it's a bit like my unicorn horn. It's like, I don't even know what that means. Yet I bet there are people who are in my community who would say they're in my community, and I would just be like, really? Oh, that's cool. I have no idea what you're talking about right now. I have no idea what you're talking about. It's that sense that somehow community means we all know each other and would know each other by virtue of being in that community. I understand it intellectually, but I can't imagine using the language, I am in the blank community, unless I'm trying to explain something to somebody that's completely separate. Right. I was writing something, I don't even remember who I was writing it to or why, but I was talking about how for most of the mid-'80s through, I don't know, late 90s, I was firmly ensconced in the LGBTQ community. I was talking to you, right? Yeah. About how I kind of like lost all my friends when I went to seminary. Right. Explaining that to you, I would say community, but it isn't like, walking down Castro, there was a secret handshake I had with like every gay man who I ran into. Right, so it's not like you experienced it that way. No. As you were living it. At all. But if you step outside of it and try to describe it for somebody else, then you might use the word community. Right. Which is different than neighborhood, right? Because if you think San Francisco... Yeah, and I'm trying to think, in that kind of context, I'm trying to think, what communities would I say I'm a part of? Like, if somebody were to ask me that. What communities are you a part of? Well, I don't feel like I'm a part of a worship leader community, because that doesn't really exist for me. I wouldn't say that I'm a part of the Nashville music scene or music community. I was at one point, but even then I wouldn't have referred to it that way. I would have said industry, because that's... Right, and industry and community are very different in feeling, right? That's what that is. For a season, I was a part of a Christian songwriter community that met every October. Okay. Which I haven't met with them for a couple of years, so I don't know that I would describe myself as part of that community right now. I'm a dad, but I don't meet with other dads. I don't hang out with other dads unless it's within the context of what we do, which isn't centered around being parents. So, I don't know. So really, you're not part of any communities. I may not be a part of any communities. Okay, that's clearly not true, judging from the way you responded when I first brought this up, that you're in charge, we're talking about this, you experienced yourself at that moment as part of communities. So. The community that I feel that I'm most a part of is the community that meets at your house. Those are friends from lots of different backgrounds. Most of us appreciate good wine, good conversation, good movies, books, that kind of stuff. We love having conversations about all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. That's my community. That's so interesting. And it's more familial and friendly. Okay. And I'm going to use friendly. Yeah. I don't have a close relationship with my family. I'm not ostracized by any means. No. And I'm not talking about my kids here. I'm talking about my extended family particularly. I don't feel close to them. I don't feel like I have very much in common with them. Okay. So I don't have those kinds of conversations or spend that kind of time with relatives or, even with my parents or my sister. So this for me is connection. Okay.
This, for me, is a place where I feel like I belong, where I contribute, but I also receive.
Right.
I can be worship leader, I can be songwriter, musical artist, I can be dad, I can be roller coaster nerd, or I can be none of those things.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
And feel at home in any of those skins or none of those skins.
Okay. Would you say that you're part of a drum corps community? Because I have seen you geek out with somebody in a parking lot.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, if I run into another drum corps fan, as I do from time to time, we'll geek out about it. I don't know that I would say I'm part of a community. I think for me to feel a part of a community would mean that I'm having communication with, like, if I were maybe part of a Facebook group, even, that might make me feel more like that.
But you're part of Facebook groups that you completely ignore. You just made a really important statement about what counts as community for you. So you talked about if you were part of Facebook groups, then you might feel, but that's clearly not true. For you, community is about regular, ongoing, at least partly open conversation and contact.
Yes. That's the way that I'm using community in the context that we're talking about tonight.
Right.
That's exactly why.
Okay. Which is why I laughed at the intelligence community idea.
Right, because that's not my thing, too.
We're gonna have a CIA operative.
It's like I keep seeing Spy versus Spy in my head. Like they're sitting down over cocktails and sharing secrets. That wouldn't happen. White hat and black hat would never do that.
But maybe they do in that. I mean, oh my gosh. Okay. There's a movie in this. Intelligence community. So here's a question. So the people you would count as not probably your closest friends, but in the next circle or two, if you haven't been in contact with them for, I don't know, how long, 6 months, year, whatever that is, are they part of your community, or are they friends, or are they, what's the language you would use? I'm thinking about people we both know with whom you'll be in occasional contact, or you'll describe as a friend who you haven't talked to in like 5 billion years.
Yeah, and friendship can be interesting because you can have a friend that you don't speak to for a number of years even, and then you reconnect with. Now, like I had a friend recently that I hadn't connected with since, probably since I was in college. She reached out to me and we started kind of dialoguing a little bit because she had gotten Grace and Gravity. And
that's your first independent CD?
Yes, my first CD. She was talking about how the songs were really speaking to her and how, So that led to dinner a couple of times, and we've been in correspondence now, and we've seen each other out several times in the last 2 years. And I didn't consider her a friend, even though there was a span of like 20 years where I didn't talk, Wow. There are people that I have had connection with in my past that I will always consider friends.
Okay.
I think most people put friends in different categories. You've got a tight circle, and then it radiates out. And while my friend Susan, that I wasn't in contact with for a long time, wouldn't be in that closest circle, since we've reconnected, she's definitely moved in 3 or 4 circles. You know what I mean? Just because we've reconnected. And so having communication certainly draws friends in. But there are people that meant a lot to me earlier in my life that I would still consider a friend. And if they showed up at my door, we'd spend an evening catching up.
Right.
And then we'd be caught up. You know what I mean? It's interesting that way.
I intellectually know what you mean.
I know. But I am a person that has few friends, but they're close.
Right.
So if you've ever been a part of that club, then you're kind of always a part of that club to some degree.
That's the interesting part right there. That's the interesting part. Okay, so I'm going to throw this out. Because you do not tend to be the person who reaches out. If someone who's been part of your extended circles reaches back out to you, you're perfectly happy to have them re-engage.
Yeah.
But you're not going to have reached out to them.
Probably not.
Right. So if your field of vision is, if you're holding out your arms from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, imagine that for a moment, and somebody steps into that 20 feet and waves, they're part of your friend circle.
Yeah.
And if they step back out of it, you might notice, you might not, depending upon, wow, yeah, that is completely unlike me. Okay, so your friend Susan, would you count her as part of your community or communities right now? Or just a friend?
She's a friend.
Okay.
Because right now, I really only see one community. And that's the community that we're a part of. That's the community that I see for myself.
Right.
Again, though, the way you described it is very, very accurate of me. I have sort of a 10 to 2 span of vision.
Right.
And when you're in that 10 to 2 span of vision, then, yeah, I notice, we correspond, we connect, that kind of thing.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that somebody that's at 3 o'clock isn't important.
You just don't see them.
I just have a limited ability to engage because a number of different reasons.
That's just the way you are. Yeah,
but if you're in that 10 to 2, then yeah.
So when we first went to the church that you serve now and that I used to serve, I wanted to sing because that's what I do.
Yep.
And I sent you an email and you didn't respond.
Yeah.
I said to my husband, clearly he doesn't need more singers because he didn't respond. Because I come from churches where you auditioned. It was tricky to get into. If the worship leader didn't respond to you, it's because they didn't need anybody. You know, It was like, yeah. Anyway, and so my husband said, no, you really should probably go talk to him because he may not have even noticed that you had the email, right? And I'm like, okay. And dragging myself to talk to you after worship that time was so incredibly painful and horrible for me. And anybody who knows you would know that that's the most ridiculous thing that I've said ever in my life. But it was awful. It was awful. I was so prepared for rejection. And then you were like, what? But it is that 10 to 2 thing.
Yeah.
And I'm so not like that.
No, you're not like that at all.
So I have no idea what community is. But pretty much anybody I've been in contact with in the last 40 years is in my broad periphery. And I may not be in contact with them. I would not say they're friends. Friends for me is a very narrow category. I would say acquaintance. I would say former student. I would say whatever.
Right.
But I am highly likely to think of somebody I haven't seen in 40 years and contact them and say, hey, you just occurred to me. Thought I'd let you know. Hope you're doing well. Boom. They never respond. That's fine. I've let them know I was thinking about them.
Yeah.
We are not similar in that way.
No, that wouldn't occur to me. And it's not that those people don't sometimes come to mind.
No.
Because sometimes something will happen, or I'll hear a song or something, and I'll remember somebody or something that was happening in my life at some point in my life. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to like pick up the phone or,
Okay, well, I don't pick up the phone.
Well, no, you don't call people.
We've talked on the phone maybe twice.
Yeah,
ever.
I know. I don't do that either. But I wouldn't necessarily reach out. It would have to be, get super spiritual. It would have to be like you're on my heart kind of reaching out.
Right.
Like if the Holy Spirit is like drilling somebody into my head, then I'm going to reach out.
Right.
Otherwise, probably not.
Right. And we've talked about that before, that one of the things for you is because of the 10 to 2, if the Holy Spirit is directing your attention towards something, you notice because it's weird.
It's weird. It's outside.
It's outside. Where for me, unless I hear God's voice, unless it's clear to me in that sense, I have to really assess whether it's a nudge from God or not, because I'm always doing the scan thing, right? From like probably 8 to 5, right? On the clock. I'm always doing that scan.
Right.
And so the fact that somebody occurs to me, or even is tugging on my heart, doesn't mean necessarily that's God, because I'm always doing it. You have a sense of community and a desire for community that I don't get at all. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Do Do you get Alumni Association mailings?
I do.
What do you feel like when you get those? I mean, aside from whether you want to give money or not, what does that feel like?
Well, see, the thing with me in college is that I started out at a very conservative, very small, private, church-affiliated school.
As a pastor.
Right, because I was going to study to be a pastor. I lasted there 5 quarters. Through a series of events that I won't get into, I ended up deciding to drop out of school and move back home. I made the decision to go back to school, but I transferred to another school, went to a state school.
Yep.
Because I didn't spend 4 years in one place,
Right.
I didn't really bond
Right.
with either place.
Sure.
And when I went back to school, I kind of treated it like a job. It's like I'm just going to get through it. So I don't feel particularly bonded to Austin Peay State University that way.
So Austin Peay is not part of your community?
No. Now, I, in recent years, have gone back and visited the campus, but I didn't for 20 years. You know, I've kind of done a lot of reaching back and reconnecting to things from my past and sort of reconciling who I am with who I was, recognizing that who I am is who I was.
Yeah.
And while there was a long span of my life where I didn't pay much attention to that,
Yeah.
I got to the point where I recognized that I needed to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
And it was almost kind of unavoidable. Like, it's one of those things that bubbles up from inside and you can't stop it. And so the reconnecting with some of those things. And Austin Peay, I didn't connect with it that deeply, but I've been back a few times now in the last few years. And when I go back, I have fond memories. Like, I can remember things and things that I thought I'd forgotten. There's some really nice memories from both campuses that I was a part of, but I didn't bond that way with either school.
I think getting back to the notion of community, the fact that you think of those memories, those nice memories, as being connected to that school speaks to your sense of community.
Yeah.
It speaks to that sense of underlying, I'm thinking hammock at the moment rather than web, but that underlying structure that's very sort of dispersed, but it holds you underneath it.
Yeah.
So when you think about going back there, or you think about, oh, that was great, we used to, you connect it with that place and that institution and the other people there. That to me speaks to that sense of community.
I can see that, yeah.
You know? Not necessarily that you feel community there, but that's what gives you the underpinnings for a notion of community.
Right.
You have talked to people who went to your high school. Cannot imagine that. I went to college within 6 miles of where I went to high school. I have seen one of the people from high school since I left high school, and it was because she was working as Cinderella at Disneyland.
Really?
My graduating class had 400 plus people in it. I've never seen any of them.
Wow.
Even though I still lived in the area for, rough area for a long time. Wouldn't have occurred to me.
Yeah. So I guess community for me these days is a fairly narrow definition, the way that I understand it and appreciate it. And it is those folks that are in my 10 to 2 consistently.
But if you think about those of us who try to build community among people who are not necessarily geographic or they aren't wearing either the black hat or the white hat of Spy v Spy.
Yeah.
And we're trying to build community. The difference between you and me, if somebody were trying to build community with us, would be a radically different job. So I've been to 7 universities or colleges. 2 of them I didn't graduate from. 1 I transferred, 1 I just dropped the program. Let's count as 6.
Okay.
Okay. If I get alumni stuff from any of them, I'm pissed off.
Oh, yeah?
Because I don't feel like I'm connected to any of them.
Yeah.
After I got divorced from my first husband, years later, they sent me some kind of something saying, would you and Mr. So-and-so be coming to whatever? And I was like, like I hadn't told them, hey, I've moved 18 times since then. Could you not? Like, they tracked me the freak down.
Wow.
Right? Because, you get the best.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got this, and I was just beyond livid, right? So I called and left this message on the Alumni Association phone. I was like, how dare you embarrass me? And oh, they printed this information in an alumni directory.
No.
Yes.
No.
It showed me still married to this man for a decade.
Oh,
Current
boy.
partner is like, excuse me?
Right? What?
You know? And I called him. I said, if you ever contact me again, I will come down there. I will fly there. I will track you down and I will hurt you. Kind of thing. No wonder I feel like an outsider. Get away from me. So you, listeners, are part of our community.
Welcome.
As weird as that sounds. But honestly, I feel closer to the people listening to us right now than I do to most people who are part of my air quote community.
Well, the fact is, we share a lot. And you don't necessarily share a lot with people that don't feel that comfortable with, right?
Right. So basically, what's happening is that I'm talking to you, and people are listening in.
And people are listening in. That's what's happening right now.
Yeah, we can't do this podcast anymore. Because this goes
over.
against every part of my nature. Right here.
It really, really does.
It's awful. I mean, when I think about it that way, it makes me just want to crawl into a hole. So you know how you're willing to, with the people you feel close to, the broader community, the 8 people, let's call them 8. You're willing to go level 1 through 4? 1.5 pushes me. I mean, really, my husband is like at 2.5. And we've been married 20 years.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is that sense of we all have layers, whether we think about them or not.
Yeah, we really, really do.
All right, so dear listeners, you may be shocked to hear this, but you know about as much about me as my therapist does. I hope you're enjoying that. And if you're my therapist, I'm really sorry. Just listen to the freaking podcast, because that's how you'll actually get to know. Take notes, and then we can talk about it if we ever meet again.
Oh, man.
Okay. As part of our community, if you go to our Patreon site,
Yes.
Patreon.com/Cocktail Theology, you can be a contributing part of our community by giving a monthly amount or one part of an amount, and we will reward you for that. We will acknowledge you as part of the community. I mean, you'll be part of his community. I mean, I'll be grateful and thankful, and I will love you, but I don't use the C word at all.
You don't use it.
No, I don't use the
Not
C
really.
word ever, really. Okay, so I guess that's it. So visit us on Patreon, on cocktailtheology.com. We would love, love, love to hear from you and get to know you. If you want to bring us to you or want to know anything, I mean, please feel free to ask us anything. We'll tell you if we don't want to answer, and that's all fine. It's info@schoolforsecrets.com. Thank you.
All right, you guys. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you.
We really do. We really do, and we'd like to know you better. So let us know more about you.
Reach out.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.